I've never murdered
Anyone.
anyone in my life. The decisions are up to them.
Alright, John, sure you didn't kill anyone. Saying you're...
I didn't kill them. Alright, I just set up the entire trap, and if they make the wrong move, yeah, they'll die. But it wasn't me. I didn't do it. He's like, oh my god, I've got cancer. So how do you feel? Do you value your life more? Do you feel happier? Do you feel sad? Don't question him. That's fucked up. Yo guys, what is up with this video? I'm reacting to Film Theory. Jigsaw was right. Alright. I don't know what Jigsaw was right about. Alright, all I know is about Jigsaw, yeah, is that I've actually watched a lot of those movies, I'm not gonna cap. I've seen all those traps. He just tortures people for like something bad they did. But like, I don't know what she's right about. I'm not even gonna cap. I'm a little confused. So there's one way to find out what he's talking about, and that's about watching the video. Alright. 3, 2, 1, let's get it.
Let's play a game. Your
Yeah, that's
entire
creepy.
Search and browsing history has been loaded into a bot that will send it to everyone in your contacts list in 1 hour. Every
worse.
time you stalked your crush,
It was
every
an
time
actual
you
torture.
googled your own name, every time you asked WebMD about that weird thing on your foot, all of it will be exposed.
That's nasty.
The only way to prevent this from happening is to find the secret message hidden somewhere in this video and then leave it down in the comments below. 5 words stand between you and embarrassment for life.
5 words.
All marked with this symbol. The clock is ticking, friends.
I
The
need
choice is
to look for it,
yours.
because they might have to see
Live
something
or
they don't want to
die.
see in the
Happy
FBI.
hunting.
Might have to take me away. Film. What was his name?
Hello, Internet! Welcome
Do
to
Film
Film
Theory,
Theory, the
so-
show that cuts straight to the truth like a hacksaw through an ankle. Today we're going to be talking about the Saw franchise, which is something I view much differently now than I did when it first came out. Back then I was all like, oh man, I wonder if I'd be determined enough to saw off my own foot to survive. Nowadays I'm more like, that saw's looking pretty rusty.
Yeah.
Hope he got himself a tetanus booster in the last 5
Bro,
years.
you know who
But I
used
gotta
that
admit,
saw?
I have a ton of respect for the Saw movies doing
AIDS
things
victim?
that no other horror movies do. And I'm not just talking about crushing people's heads between
Bro, the
blocks of
murders are
ice,
so
friends.
sick.
I mean, when
you're-
I watch
if
a
you're, like,
horror
young,
movie, there are
don't
plenty
watch
of
it.
things that I can expect to get. Nightmares, anxiety, underwear stains. But you know what I don't expect
That
to get?
ain't
Team
he.
building
What?
exercises. Seriously, before the Saw movies came out, had anybody ever heard of an escape room? Not only did this franchise make me horrified of fluorescent lighted bathrooms in need of a good deep
Actually,
clean, but it also doomed
no,
many
that's
people
actually
to the
true.
fate
Wait,
of solving
Saw's
lightly
actually, like-
thematic
like,
puzzles
you know,
with acquaintances from around
lived
the
up
office. The other
escape
rare
rooms,
thing that
'cause
the
I
Saw
never actually
franchise
knew what it
did
was
was to give us a
before Saw.
super villain with reasons behind what he's doing. Jigsaw's stated goal in the movies is to make people more appreciative for being alive and to motivate them to stop doing whatever terrible things that they're doing in their
mean-
everyday life.
You see, the knowledge of death changes everything. If I were to tell you the exact date and time of your own death, it would shatter your world completely.
He's not wrong.
Savor everything, be it a glass of water or a walk in the park. But most people have the luxury of not knowing when that clock's gonna go off. And the irony of it is that keeps them from really living their life.
Which is weirdly
Value your
admirable
life,
in
guys,
a way.
okay?
Certainly more
Live to the
admirable
fullest.
than
You wanna
Michael
come- you wanna-
Myers, who
you
just
wanna-
wants to kill
you rob
because
a
he's
bank?
crazy,
You
or
rob a
Freddy
bank.
Krueger, who wants to kill you for fun, or Leatherface, who wants to kill you because he needs your bones for furniture. I mean, don't get me wrong
Bro,
here.
that's a
What the
good
Jigsaw
reason,
Killer
though.
is doing is twisted and gross and seems like an engineering nightmare, but I don't know, he's like a motivational poster. A bloody, murdery motivational
But it is
poster.
motivational.
I've never
Motivational.
murdered
What?
anyone in my life. The decisions are up to them.
Alright, John, sure you didn't kill anyone. Saying you're
I didn't kill them. Alright, I just set up the entire trap, and if they make the wrong move, yeah, they'll die. But it wasn't me. I didn't do it.
not a murderer because the traps kill them is the same thing as shooting someone and claiming you didn't kill them, the gun did. Nice try, buddy. Rationalizing away your
he's
horrific
not
murder
wrong.
spree aside, the Saw franchise does bring up an interesting point. Is Jigsaw right? Is putting people into dangerous, painful, life-threatening, and ethically paradoxical circumstances leaving them better off, assuming that the players of the games actually live through them, which is usually not the case.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you,
Probably not
after
then.
doing the research, Jigsaw isn't wrong. And today, I'm here to tell you why. So sharpen your hacksaws, stay away
course.
from pits
Oh,
full of
that's the
needles,
worst
and
trap I've
steer
ever seen in
clear
my
of
life.
any
That's
tricycle
disgusting.
riding
What music
puppets,
inside
because
you?
today we're diving deep into whether Jigsaw is, through his own twisted psychology, making the world a slightly better place. Now, the
Pride.
first Saw movie came out in 2004 when the most cutting-edge game you can get on a cell phone was Snake. So even if you're a fan of the franchise, you might need a refresher on Jigsaw, aka John Kramer's motivations. So
Okay.
here's a recap and your official spoiler warning for for the entire franchise. In the original Saw movie, Jigsaw kidnaps two men, Adam and Dr. Gordon, and gives them cryptic clues on what they have to do in order to escape the grody bathroom that they awaken in. But as the movie goes on, we slowly learn why Jigsaw chose these two for his game.
Why?
He finds them both morally objectionable. Adam spies on people and sells his photos to blackmailers.
That's
and
horrible.
Dr. Gordon appears to be ignoring his family to have an extramarital affair. But it's
That's
when
the
we
worst.
see a
No, no,
flashback to one of
definitely just
Jigsaw's
depicting one of the
surviving
worst.
victims that we get the real motivation behind his games. Amanda, a drug addict, finds her head in a reverse bear trap that threatens to flip her skull inside out unless she finds a key to it in a dude's intestines. Remarkably, she succeeds, and is then given the creepiest end screen of any game
Who's the
ever.
dude that goes to test like?
You are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. But not you. Not anymore.
So Jigsaw is teaching his victims little life
That
lessons to
Jigsaw's
help them
not
realize
scary,
that
though,
they
I
are
don't care.
hashtag blessed. And it works for Amanda. After this traumatic ordeal, she overcomes her addiction, telling the police,
Helped.
I mean,
Jigsaw's goal is ultimately to help people turn their lives around, which mirrors his own
if you don't turn
journey
your
as
life
we find
around,
out in later movies.
your life's
Jigsaw
gonna
is a
be
guy named John
taken.
Kramer
I
who got a
don't
double
think they
dose
do.
of bad
I'm
news
sorry.
when his wife miscarried their unborn son and he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. When he survives an attempt to end his own life, he becomes determined to,
Testing the fabric of human nature.
by teaching others that,
Those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
in short, he wants to almost kill people so that they'll snap out
don't
of their
think
bad
about
behavior.
I
or,
like how
they just
wonderful
fail and
life
die.
is.
Though, to be fair, John, if this was truly your stated goal, you would give him, I don't know, a little bit more than 60 seconds to dislodge the key that was surgically implanted behind their eye to remove them from the spiked Iron Maiden that's about to snap their head in two. Just saying.
Bro,
Obviously,
that's an
it's
actual-
all
I
a
haven't seen that. That's an
psychopathic
actual
idea,
trap.
right? You can't play
Kramer,
mousetrap with
you're not trying to
people's
let them live.
lives.
You're
But
trying to
for
kill
as
them. You're trying to kill them.
crazy
No
as
lie.
Jigsaw's logic is, it's not without precedent. Throughout history, many philosophers have seen trauma and suffering as a means of achieving personal growth, such as Schopenhauer, Kierkegaard, and most notably, Friedrich Nietzsche. With his catchphrase that God is dead and that luxurious mustache, Nietzsche rode the line between emo and hipster better than any other 19th century German philosopher. And he was famous for not being all sunshine and rainbows in his thinking. In his 1886 work Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche presents a couple of philosophies that Jigsaw would likely retweet on Twitter. Nietzsche claimed that society evaluates actions based on intention rather than consequence. And he's right about that because society's laws are generally based on intention. Let's say that there's a burglar roaming
Yeah.
around your neighborhood.
Of
So
course.
to protect yourself and your
Normal
neighbors,
things.
you drop an anvil on its head, Wile E. Coyote style. The law would say that your intention was to harm someone, and therefore your anvil drop was immoral, and more importantly to you, a ruling of murder. Nietzsche would look at your action and say that because its consequence was good, i.e.
Mm-hmm.
people not being robbed of their jewelry and electronics and Pokemon cards, then the action would be a moral one. In other words,
mean,
Nietzsche believed that the ends
he's not-
justify
he's
the
kind
means,
of right,
and that an
'cause, you know,
action with positive
someone's, trying to
consequences
steal some
is
shit, you
moral
beat him up, you accidentally
regardless
killed
of its
him.
motivation or execution. Nietzsche is saying that the results are what really matter in determining the right thing to do. Someone who sees the same burglar and calls the police or warns the neighborhood might have a purer intention than the anvil dropper, but those shouldn't be considered because their consequences are less effective. The police might not arrive, or
That's
they
facts.
might let the burglar go and commit future burglaries.
Please,
Warned
come quick,
neighbors
come
might
quick.
still
What's-
get
what's
robbed, but
skin
if
color
you
you?
smush that
I'm
burglar
not
on the
white,
sidewalk
but
like a
they're not coming in like
pancake,
10
you can be
minutes.
sure that he's committed his last burglary, and therefore Nietzsche would consider it the most moral of the choices, because its consequence, no more burglaries, was the most certain. And then he'd lean back in his chair and comb that epic 19th century mustache.
looks like
of
shit,
his.
I ain't gonna
Jigsaw
lie.
presumably agrees, given that he considers himself morally righteous in playing these games. He figures that if
He's
some
a big
people can be
Nietzsche
saved
fan, I
or
can't say his name.
improved as a result of the torture, then the torture was the right thing. Even more
think she's the
importantly,
girl who
Nietzsche
throws the
believed that
needles, I'm pretty sure.
progress was the result of suffering. Specifically, he wrote this, quote, "The discipline of suffering, of great suffering. Don't you realize that up to this point, it is only this suffering which has created every enhancement in man up to now? That tension of a soul in misery which develops its strength. Has that not been given to it through suffering, through the discipline of great suffering?" Again, to translate that from cranky German philosopher to English, Nietzsche was saying that all of mankind's progress is the result of suffering, and therefore we should embrace it. Well, if that ain't Jigsaw to
suffering.
the letter,
Jigsaw's
I don't
just
know what
doing it.
is. If mankind's greatness is the result of suffering, Jigsaw figures he can just add more
Suffering
suffering into the
to
mix and create
increase-
better people as a result.
Exactly.
Okay, so Jigsaw studied some philosophy to impress people in college. We've all been there, or at least I've been there, because I studied Kantian philosophy in college to
I never
impress
did
my
any
now
of this
wife
shit.
Stephanie, which worked, I guess? I don't know, it was the only class that I ever skipped. It was senior year and just a bonus class that I was taking to fill out my schedule. Also, in my defense, still got an A. Anyway, just because some of Jigsaw's principles are rooted in the thoughts of great philosophers doesn't necessarily mean he's right. Do his games actually change the survivors for the better?
I mean, some don't.
Surprisingly, yes.
Some don't.
The best thing that ever happened to me. He was abusive, but it wasn't until that moment that it really did something.
While, to be fair, most of the players wind up dead, a shocking number of survivors wind up with a new outlook on life. It's something that the series deals pretty heavily with in Saw 3D. During a group therapy session for survivors of Jigsaw's games, we hear that many have found themselves a new outlook on life.
I am simply here to illustrate the fact that a traumatic experience can have a positive outcome. But if you look around at all of these people,
I mean,
taking their lives for
he's not
granted,
wrong. You obviously value your life more because you're almost about to die. Then obviously, think, I should actually value this life that I've been given.
And Dr. Gordon from the first Saw movie not only survive, but also end up adopting Jigsaw's philosophy, helping him set up his games with new participants in future films.
And maybe make the death to living ratio a little bit,
many of the surviving victims of the movies agree with Jigsaw, but does the science agree with Jigsaw? I suppose to convince you, you'd need some real-world evidence that the kind of trauma Jigsaw subjects his victims to actually has benefit. Well, let me introduce you to Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, psychologists and creators of the Post-Traumatic Growth Index. In studies conducted in the 1990s, Tedeschi and Calhoun set out to see if they could measure the positive impact of disasters in people's lives, whether that was being diagnosed with a terminal illness, being a victim of violence,
Bro, imagine
surviving
someone like
a
even
natural
doing this
disaster.
to you. He's like, oh my god, I've got cancer. So how do you feel? Do you value your life more? Do you feel happier? Do you feel sad? Mate, my dude has like cancer, okay? Just let him grief. Let him be him, man. Don't question him. That's fucked up.
And the results for the survivors of these traumatic events were positive. Survivors self-reported positive change in the direction of their lives overwhelmingly. 80% said that they had established a new path for their lives, and 76% reported that they were able to do better things with their lives. A separate study compared survivors of trauma to those who had experienced no major trauma. The results found that the survivors outscored the control group in terms of their ability to relate to others, personal strength, and most importantly for Jigsaw, their appreciation of life. All in all, 60% of participants expressed that there was a positive effect on themselves after
let's just give us those trauma.
So
let's go. Might have to jump off this
Jigsaw
right
is
now.
right,
Jump out.
Trauma's messy to be sure, but science shows that overwhelmingly it leads to improvements in people's perceptions of themselves and their lives. The victims in the movie agree, ye olde philosophers agree, and science agrees. That's it. Theory over. Slapping on a thumbnail. We're done with another Halloween season upload. Except for one thing. John Kramer didn't read himself the fine print. This is why you always gotta read past the headlines, people. Because while yes, 60% of participants expressed a positive effect after the trauma, a whopping 94% said that they experienced either some or extreme negative consequences as a result of the trauma. Estimates vary, but experts believe that people who experience some acute form of physical trauma have between a 20 and 50% chance of developing acute stress disorder and or post-traumatic stress disorder, both of which often manifest in nightmares, flashbacks, increased likelihood of self-harm. Sure, if you survive a plane crash, you might appreciate your life a bit more and not get bothered by little things as much, decide to take that improv class that you always wanted to, but you're also much likelier to suffer panic attacks and have your daily routine more interrupted. So it's pretty short-sighted to say that introducing trauma into people's lives will only help them. And you know what? Jigsaw, of all people, should understand that, because most of his trauma was damaging to him rather than helpful. After he lost his unborn son, his response was grief and depression. Not, wow, my life is suddenly better. When he was diagnosed with cancer, more grief and depression, not sunshine and rainbows. It took him a third trauma, the near-death experience of ending his own life, for him to have his quote-unquote epiphany. But the whole situation should have told him that the typical result of a traumatic event is not some positive, life-affirming change. It is insecurity, it is depression, it is grief, it is post-traumatic stress. Turns out that maybe we shouldn't be looking to a serial murderer for philosophical and psychological guidance. Who knew? In the words of one of his former survivors,
you wanna know the best thing that happened to me after having to cut off my own arm? Is handicap parking at the damn mall.
Everyone's a critic, I guess. But hey, that's just
a
a theory.
A
film
film theory.
theory. And
Game over.
Bro, I mean, when you have trauma, yeah, say if you like fall off a building, yeah, if if you're alive in the hospital, that should be good. You're like, okay, I didn't die. But if you say you like are paralyzed from the neck down, then of course you're gonna be sad. It's like if you have trauma, you gotta have something good. So say, oh my god, the baby. No, that's fucked up. Think of one. You know, car crash. Oh no, it's like you broke a leg, but you could have died. You should be happy that you didn't die. So you should value life more and probably drive slower. I'm just saying. Of course, you know, people obviously can have like post-traumatic stress disorder and all that shit, and that's probably horrible. So obviously, don't give yourself stress, and don't give yourself any sort of traumatic event. Why would you do that? I don't know. But if you do, don't. But if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.